Yes, soon to be EMS.
No, Johnson David. 6:30. You guys had a good call.
Because June 6th at 6:30, can we call this meeting to order, please? Deputy Clerk, can you give the roll call, please?
Carter,
Here.
Ellis,
Here.
Bacon,
Here.
Hodgkin,
Here.
Lawrence,
Here.
Mackey,
Here.
Morrison,
Here.
Newbill,
Here.
Bertini,
Here.
Fredo,
Here.
Theodore,
Here.
Taylor,
Here.
Orr.
Here.
Thank you.
Can we stand for the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right.
I'd like to make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Second. Second. During discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Page passes. So we're gonna do, we have a presentation today, so, we're gonna do public comment just like we normally do, but we're gonna keep it to 15 minutes if we can of public comments, and then at the end of the meeting, we'll have another public comment session and then public comment session. But then at that time, you can take your time, or if you didn't get to say anything, then do it then, but just to help us keep the meeting moving. So please give your name and your ward, and try and be civil and nice, and let's hear what you guys have to say. Thank you, citizen.
My name is Nancy Kyle, and I'm a fourth generation Aberdonian, second generation working for the museum, and I graduated from Wetland High School. But the thing that's surprising to me is that I am the last person who was raised in this area who is on the board of the Aberdeen Friends of the Aberdeen Museum. And think about that. People come to this area from all over, and they learn a little bit about our history, and they're hooked. We have logging, shipping, shipbuilding, unions from the IWW to the murder of Laura Law and the shooting in the back of the head of William McKay. Our history is not always pretty, but it is fascinating. That is why they call us the Hellboy of the Pacific. We got that name legitimately. Anyway, I would like to thank the council people who came to the tours that Director Barnum set up this week. The questions were sometimes pointed, but they really pointed out what we need to make it clarify. You're going to be asked in 2 weeks to vote on whether to accept money from the state. That money comes in 2 bins, and one is from Capital Heritage. And yes, that is a grant and requires a match, but you've already made the match. You bought the 118 building. The other money, $2.5 million, that's just tapped out money. That's from the Department of Congress. There's no match for that. You take that money, they were gonna do it for the Gateway Center, which died, and that was a visitor center. All they care is that you get a visitor center. They don't care what building's it's in. They don't care if the building is shared with a museum. The only thing you need to do is commit that you're gonna keep a visitor center and museum open for 13 years. The last one was open for 30, so quite worried about it. So I guess the other thing is, I know you're worried about having to be responsible for the museum. In the old days, the city had the same worries. And so they created the Friends of the Aberdeen Museum to run the museum for them. So they were out of it. And that's a good fiscal decision, because why pay for it when you can get volunteers to do it? So whoever you pick to do it, whether it be the Friends or somebody else, do it with volunteers. Thanks.
Thank you.
Jerry Salton from Ward 1. And as you know, Miller Junior High celebrated its 100th anniversary in January. I'd like to thank Mayor Orr for being part of the celebration. But what you might not know is what went into putting that celebration together. And thanks to Fred Scott from Aberdeen Office Equipment, who donated the use of a copy machine. And all of the volunteers we've had over at the museum who spent hours putting together material. Almost all of the material that we used to decorate the entire building, the students put up, our whole history from 1924 to 2024. All that material came from the Aberdeen Museum. But to me, more important than just the celebration itself is what our community and our kids got out of it. Let me read you just one comment from one student. A seventh grader said, "I enjoyed the 100-year celebration so much because it made me appreciate the school to a whole new level." I believe this is the prime purpose of a museum. Learning about and honoring our past is how we build pride and hope for the future. When I asked students afterwards, how many of them would like to put together the school displays in the new museum when it opens, hands went up. Our high school video production class has already started doing video interviews of local citizens as a museum project. Next week, Miller students will serve as escorts in Founders Day Parade for the Grand Marshals and also to celebrate our centennial. Let me ask you this question. Why do we celebrate Founders Day? Isn't it for the same reasons we have a museum? Isn't it to preserve, honor, and learn from the past as we feel pride and engagement in the present and to motivate us to continue that legacy into the future? The museum is not just a place for objects from the past, but a dynamic connection of the past and the present to help build the future. It's an interaction with people of our community relating their stories across generations. We're better to preserve and display the legacy we're leaving for those who come after us. And if we fail to preserve and honor our past, then what value do the present and the future hold for future generations? Recognizing that budgets are limited and priorities must be set, I ask each of you to research and think about the value a new and interactive museum can bring to our community, especially when we have an opportunity to receive state funds that can get the museum up and running. I think you will find it is an investment that will have long-term returns, helping us build not only community pride, but will be an asset that will add value to living in Aberdeen. I want to thank you for honoring the past by looking forward, just as our founders did a century and a half ago. Thank you.
Hi, again, Victoria Rivera. I'm the library manager for the Aberdeen Timberland Library. And I think we're verified. Tonight, I just wanted to share something from our collection, just to try to get the word out, what we have to offer for the Aberdeen community. So tonight I have the A&D Medical Blood Pressure Monitoring Kit, which is available now at the Aberdeen Timberland Library. This state-of-the-art machine provides accurate readings right in the comfort of your home with its adjustable wide range cup, fitting arms from 1.6 to 16.5 inches. It ensures a comfortable and reliable measurement experience, whether managing hypertension or simply keeping track of your health. It's easy to use and available for a 3-week checkout period at your library. But remember, your health is precious. Before making any changes to your medical routine, please consult with your doctor. And again, we have this wonderful kit available at the Aberdeen Timberland Library, and we have 2 available for checkout. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, well, that was really easy. Thank you. But can we move on to the consent agenda?
I move to approve tonight's consent agenda, which includes minutes from the June 12th meeting, accounts payable and payroll.
Then first and second, is there any comments? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Right now, we have a presentation on the North Aberdeen Bridge. Dave Evans and Associates have operated.
Oh, pretty. There you go.
All right, can you guys hear me okay? Thank you. All right, I'm Deborah Seaman, and I am representing the North Aberdeen Bridge Project, the consultant team. I'm from David Evans and Associates. And so Kyle Fisher and myself have put together this slide presentation. We have been in another council meeting, so there will be some common slides, kind of the upfront and background of the project will be things you've seen before. And then we want to pick up and give you information that has occurred since our previous council meeting, things like what happened at the open house and our stakeholder outreach meetings, and walk you through our level 2 screening process to get to a preferred alternative. So I've been asked to keep this under 20 minutes, and that will be my goal. So the first slide is just all of our team members, our consultant team. Kyle Fisher again is our project manager, and Nick and Rick are also on the city's team, helping us through this process. We have a technical working group consisting of several agency team members, as well as a large stakeholder group that we've been meeting with throughout our alternatives analysis process, and several of the council members have been present on that team, and members of the audience, there's a handful that are also here from the stakeholder group, and appreciate all their time. They've attended at least 4 meetings that had a 2 to 3 hour duration, so they've really committed a lot of time to this project with us, and we just want to tell them thank you for all of their participation and input. So the purpose is to connect North Aberdeen to the rest of the downtown core in a safe and reliable manner. We are looking at a bridge that was built in 1956. It's about 300 feet long, 2 travel lanes, and a very narrow sidewalk currently. We received a 23.1 million grant, federal grant, and that will be for the design phase, right-of-way acquisition, and construction. We worked through several objectives at the beginning of this process to help us guide us through the alternatives analysis process. And recurring themes that you've probably heard is we're trying to get our construction funding by September of 2026. That will help us to avoid a 13% local match for this grant, which is significant dollars, approximately 3 million. We're also working to minimize impacts, provide a structurally sufficient access across the Wichita River. And these will work its way into the criteria that we use for the analysis as well. This is a flow chart of a cartoon of our alternatives analysis process, the second blue box. And our goal is to identify the preferred alternative, and we will get to that today. And then we're going to move forward with preliminary and final design process afterwards, moving into environmental approvals, acquiring any necessary property to construct the project, and then hopefully obligate construction funding by September of 2026. So that's our target. And just for reference, we had an open house in March. We had another open house June 13th. And then we'll hold a third open house during the preliminary and final design phase, once we have some solid construction plans that we can show the public. Obviously, Kurt Cobain's significance has played a role in this alternatives analysis process. and finding a way to, honor that, part of the project. The adjacent Memorial Park will also come into play, especially during construction, and how we minimize impacts to that. This is a summary of how we've brought in public opportunities for comments and feedback to bring back into the process. Again, we had an open house in March. We were here in April for a presentation. May 8th, there was another opportunity to provide public comments on record at the council meeting, and then our second open house in June. So early in the process, we brainstormed about 10 options, and they were falling within 3 categories. And so I'm gonna just kind of breeze through these since everybody has most likely seen these before. But they are in the packet for reference later. We also developed 10 criteria to evaluate those 10 options. And we had our stakeholder outreach group help us rank the importance of those criteria. And that went through the level 1 screening process. So this chart, lots of numbers, there's a lot of math. But the result was we ended up moving 3 options forward into the level 2 screening process. And that was option 2A and 2B, which are slight variations of building a new bridge and keeping either part or all of the old bridge, as well as option 3C, which builds a new bridge in the footprint of the existing bridge and then repurposes portions of the existing bridge and the adjacent park. So those are the 3 options that moved on to level 2 screening. So the activity of that screening, we just went deeper into details of the review process for those 3 options, and there's basically 5 steps. So the first one is we developed more detailed bridge and roadway design concepts. The first level was more of a cartoon. So the first step here was to actually get into AutoCAD, use our topographic survey-based map with elevations and exact measurements, and create drawings and sketches for each of the options. We then took those dimensions and thought through how the bridge would actually be constructed by a potential contractor, what their impacts to the surrounding land would look like, and within the river itself. That feeds into what we put into our permit applications and how we would evaluate impacts to the right of way. So it would be not only impacts to the right of way, but environmental impacts, whether that's wetlands or stream buffer or the stream itself. Those could be temporary impacts or permanent impacts. We're looking at all of those and gauging that as part of the analysis. We then walked through a very detailed cost estimate for the major big ticket items of the 3 bridge options to compare the 3 against each other. And also to gauge a comparison for what that number might look like compared to the $23 million grant that we received. We then took all of those pieces, put them into the blender, and used another matrix, screening matrix, with those 10 criteria. And then evaluated the total score for each of the options, as well as our estimated construction cost. So that was the process we went through as an overview. I've also got slides here that are kind of more detailed of those 5 steps. So I'm gonna probably move into the impacts for each of the 3 options, because I think that's probably where a lot of people have questions or concerns. So for actually staging, we'll start with staging. We know we're gonna have some temporary access across the river for the contractor, whether that's a work platform or a work bridge. They're gonna have cranes to remove pieces of equipment from the river or pieces of the pilings, et cetera. And also to set the new girders for the bridge. So the purple is meant to represent an estimated footprint of what the contractor would need to work in upstream and downstream of the river for the different stages of the work. So let's go to option 2A, impacts for that option, right of way in the lower left corner. There is the red is permanent right of way acquisition, so property, private property acquisition. That would be impacting a shed on that parcel. And then the upper right and the lower right side are some minor impacts. They don't actually impact any structures and would be evaluated for a cost of that acquisition. The light blue is a temporary acquisition, and that would be like a temporary construction easement that the contractor would be using and then giving back to the property owner at the end of the work and restoring it to whether it was landscaping or plantings, et cetera. So option 2A had 3 parcels impacted. Option 2B has the same 3 parcels impacted, but in the lower left, you'll see that most likely we could save that existing shed. And then in 3C, we only impact 2 properties in the upper right and the lower right, so that's the north side of the river. And one of them is only a temporary impact in the lower right. So again, we evaluated the 3 options and looked at the construction costs. So what's circled in that red box is a value for what the contractor's bid might come back as. Plus we've added in some additional items like surveying and mobilization, traffic control, mitigation. Oops. And also added in some inflation 3 years out from today's dollars. These are estimated on construction costs for similar type of projects in the region, unit costs, a lot of washout projects in the area with bridges. So then we accelerated those dollars out a couple years to when this project would go to construction. So they range from 28 million, 29 million, and almost 22 million. Again, this is not an exact cost estimate, but it's rough, and we tried to take the big ticket items and also put in a fair amount of contingency, and then the hope would be as we refine the design and refine it, we have opportunities to also minimize some of these costs and come within as close as we can to that grant amount. So the level 2 screening scoring for these 3 options. Option 3C on the far right, the very, very bottom, you'll see a score of 397. The middle column, which is option 2B, had a score of 318. And then option 2A had a score of 296. I just copied that bottom of that matrix here on the top slide. So when we worked through our last stakeholder group, the feedback we received was that the majority of the stakeholders preferred option 2B, which is to salvage the existing bridge. But it was also contingent on us being able to find an additional, 10 million plus or minus to bridge the funding gap. And I know that a lot of the stakeholders have been working behind the scenes feverishly the last couple of weeks to solicit participation from the private side to help contribute to this. So they've the discussion was if we could not come up with that 10 million gap, that the city would then, the city's technical team would then present for moving forward option 3C, which is to replace the existing bridge with a new bridge. And as of today's date, is my understanding, we have not been able to obtain a $10 million private funding commitment. And the project team would be looking to move forward with option 3C as the preferred alternative. And as we move that forward, we want to capitalize on several of the stakeholder group members' expertise and other community members who would be willing to help us form a Kurt Cobain Memorialization Committee. Because if you remember in option 3C, we want to then take portions of the existing bridge and repurpose them in creative ways that they can still honor Kurt Cobain in the adjacent park, et cetera. So we want to bring in that expertise and creativity from those committee members, membership from the community to help the technical team with elements such as that. That is the end of the formal presentation. Are there any questions?
I've got a couple of questions for you. On one of your earlier charts, you had obligate construction funding as of September 2026. Does that mean we just get our construction funding secured and in place, but no actual construction has yet begun?
Yes, so in order to obligate construction, you have to have all of your right-of-way acquired.
Okay.
And all of your environmental permits achieved in hand.
Right.
Those
So I guess that ties into my second question I was gonna ask is, so it's gonna take a little over 2 years, about 2 years and 2 months to get us to that point?
Yes,
Well,
and what's driving that is the environmental process.
okay, thank you.
I've got a question for you. So are there houses that are impacted by 3C? You were saying that one property would just be restored, you know, because they need a right of way for it.
Are you able to pull this slide, show that? No, so in 3C, there are no residences or buildings impacted.
Okay.
There in the upper right corner, there was a drive aisle for the apartments that is minimally impacted, but we feel there's still sufficient driving distance around it. And then the lower right-hand corner, the duplex, it's just temporary impacts. Here we go. So the light blue in the lower right corner is a temporary impact for the duplex property. And in the upper right, there's a tiny little red wedge of red permanent impact to build the sidewalk. And again, we would try to also minimize the sidewalk. We are putting a 14-foot shared use path across the bridge, and then we're tying into an existing 6-foot sidewalk. So we could also probably taper the sidewalk to avoid permanent impact, but right now we want to kind of show worst case scenario.
Okay.
I have one here. So, on the demolition, I don't see anything on there that talks about the costs of demolition. But I was also looking at those pilings that it says, do those have to be removed? Aren't they just fine? I mean, they've been there forever.
So on the cost estimate, where we show structure dash existing, that's where we've lumped in the 3 different options, whether we were rehabilitating the existing structure or demolishing and removing the existing structure. So that would be kind of a ballpark of $700,000 for option 3C.
And what about those pilings?
And the pilings, we still need to coordinate with the Corps of Engineers and cultural, because those existing piers are part of the old swing bridge, the pre-1956 bridge. So some people might look at them as good mitigation to remove them, and the Corps might say, well, that's more river impact. So we don't know for sure. We put some dollars in there for that, but only minimal. So we don't know for sure how that will end up yet until we get into the permitting process.
Thanks. Anybody else? Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, okay, thank you for the mayor's. Just wanted to take a minute, I went to, Upper High graduation the other day, and it was fun. It's nice to see all those kids graduating after their hard work. But one of the best parts about that was that they had put so many volunteer hours into decorating their hall and decorating their school for everybody to see. And that leads me to, I also went to the museum warehouse the other day and actually saw them working, and there was about 7 volunteers there working away. And then I also went to the senior center, had a volunteer luncheon, Cap put it on, and I spoke to their crowd about volunteerism and how special it is for everybody. And I just wanted to let everybody know that the council folks are all pretty much volunteers too. I mean, they get a little stipend, but the importance of volunteers in our community and volunteering to help do a lot of things that can't normally be done by city or by other people is just a wonderful thing. And I just wanted to point that out to everybody, that if you get a chance to volunteer and help out your community, it gives you a wonderful feeling inside. And like Miller Junior High, it was, when they had their anniversary, tons of volunteers helped them get that going. It really adds so much to our community. So I just wanted to add that. Okay, so now council reports. All right.
Okay, we have a report from the Homeless Response Committee. And on June 4th, the Homeless Response Committee had its kickoff meeting with GS Consulting. And GS Consulting is the firm that the city's working with to provide rural technical assistance. So like with housing and what we can do to try to create more housing in our area. Low income housing and things like that. The HRC also coordinated a health and sanitation cleanup at the camps downtown on June 5th. We learned some lessons and that were brought up to our community resource groups for the next cleanup, things that didn't go so well. Some of the feedback included the amount of time staff waited before cleaning up. The campers refused to get rid of enough items, defeating the purpose of the cleanup. There was trash placed under the railroad tracks and it was left there. And so we had to go later and pick it up. The tents placed, there was a tent placed and left under the railroad tracks, which that had to be removed. And there were an increased number of campers and the efforts to get them housed or shelter alternative is getting more difficult. And then there's food waste. There's different people that give out food and they give them in boxes and then they just kind of pick through them and then leave the boxes and then the city's left to clean up the mess. And so all of these items will be discussed in the next coordination meeting to hopefully prevent these same errors from happening on the next cleanup. With the resource groups that are down there helping and all the volunteers that are, all these people, besides the people hired by the city, are down there giving of their own time to help clean up. The county commissioners have agreed to delay a decision on the city's proposal for the village that we've proposed and has requested that the city conduct more outreach efforts to the community and to the council to try to maybe alternative ideas and, brainstorming. And so we will discuss and bring forward a proposal for an outreach plan and some workshop dates for the council to choose from so that we can all be in the same room and people who haven't been able to give input, they'll be able to do that at this time. And the city administrator has received feedback on a direction for the strategy, and that includes a transition village plan. And we have a lot of things that we have to do and we can work on all of them at the same time. But the first priority is a plan for a place for these people to lay their heads. And then a safe parking place plan, which is really important because there are people living out of their vehicles and trailers, and they're congesting the city and causing trouble for businesses, making it so that they can't enter their own businesses and their customers can't participate in going into their stores. So that's a priority. And then working on permanent housing, the low income housing that we're working with nonprofit organizations to try to build some of this. And the city has a meeting with GS Consulting tomorrow, June 27th, and we'll discuss facilitated discussions with the community and council. And we'll have more to come at the next meeting then, because we have another committee meeting coming up. And that's it for the Homeless Response Committee.
Thank you. Any other council folks? With the report?
Last week I had the privilege of attending the Association of Washington Cities annual conference. I was able to attend about 10 different seminars and workshops, including a mobile tour of Vancouver's safe stay locations. One is a parking lot for RVs and other vehicles that people are living in, and others are their transitional housing. I was honored to receive a scholarship to attend that event to lessen the impact on the city and represent Aberdeen also in the Parade of Flags. During the keynote lunch, all the recipients for the Certificate of Municipal Leadership were celebrated. So I wanted to take a moment and again congratulate Casey Morrison and Council Debbie Carotini, for earning their certificates, Casey for earning hers, and Debbie for earning her advance. I am looking forward to sharing more information about it in the coming weeks. I still have to read through that notebook a couple more times. There's a lot of stuff in there.
Okay, thank you. Any other council people?
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to give a shout out, but I won't shout, to all the volunteers who put together such a fabulous World Music Day. And the theme was bringing community together with music, and it certainly did. It was just lovely to see our streets full of people and all different kinds of music downtown. It was just a wonderful event. And then I attended both the open house at the 118 West Wishkah building slated for the Aberdeen Museum, as well as the warehouse facility. And it was a nice juxtaposition because you could see the size of the building that's used for the collection is just about what the footprint is at the old Sears building where a museum could move to and be a really good fit. And the volunteers who have been working hard on that collection reiterated how the city's made all the right investments financially to get this museum up and running without us having to look for additional money to get to that point. And I know that's what so many residents have asked for. Give us back our museum. And we're on the edge of making that happen. And I hope that we can be part of supporting all of the volunteers who put so much work into this. And our history is so rich. It's just fascinating and wonderful. And the stuff that they have is really cool. So we'll be hearing more about that. And then I'm on the board of the Seaport. Seaport will be having one of their restored longboats in both the Pirate Days Parade over in Westport and Founder's Day Parade here in Aberdeen. So Arg, I'll keep an eye out for you there.
Thank you. Anyone else? I just want to say, boy, they had really cool stuff over at the warehouse. Rental, right? It was just really cool. All right, let's go move on to the staff reports, administrator. Comments?
Thank you, Mayor. My report has been provided to all of you. It was in front of your seats, or in front of your desks. Hopefully you received that. If you haven't, just let me know. I'm happy to provide you a copy. A reminder, the new EMS rate will take effect on August 1 of this year, but it won't be reflective on bills until the September billing, utility bill. The new monthly rate will be $31.87 and will increase on January 1 to $34.11. I would like to thank Public Works, Parks, Police, and Fire departments for their involvement with the world and help in making World Music Day successful for our community. I also saw some police officers from other cities like Montesano and I think Cosmos, no, not Cosmos, but Hoquiam that were present and served to help keep everyone safe. So it was a very successful event and nice to attend that. And I can't wait to see what it's like for next year. I think that's on last Monday, we hosted a consortium for community resource groups to talk about some potential changes that Mayor Orr would like to propose and when confronting the issue of homelessness. So we were able to get really good feedback from them. They really enjoyed the conversation. They said that they had never been able to engage in a discussion like that. So I'm happy that we were able to provide a platform for them to speak freely and to talk about bringing some viable solutions forward for the city to consider. So that pretty much makes up my report. Are there any questions regarding that?
Sorry, you said that 3 approaches were presented to the group for their feedback. Can you elaborate on what those were?
So the 3 approaches would cover enforcement and would cover a safe parking place as well. And then I believe we also introduced the idea of the village. We expanded on some ideas for them and what the potential impacts would be with enforcement. And some different ideas that we have come across with other cities and have spoken to our risk management attorneys about as well. So we want to flesh those ideas out. I know that there's a lot of information out there, but I'd like to encourage people that if you want the most accurate information, please feel free to contact me. My name is Ruth Clemens. I'm the city administrator. We're happy to provide information that comes directly from the HRC. Our HRC, our Homeless Response Committee, also has a lot of information and they engage in discussion, a lot of brainstorming. So happy to provide any information that way regarding what's being discussed and what's being considered.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I have one more question, separate but related. The next health and sanitation effort will be on what day?
It will be on July 9th.
And is there going to be any changes instituted in how things are collected down there?
Yeah, so like I said, I presented Councilmember Pericini, who's also the chair of the Homeless Response Committee, presented concerns and lessons learned from the last cleanup. And I forwarded those to the community resource groups. They meet about a week prior to every cleanup and they discuss lessons learned. So there were a lot since there are an increased number of people down there. So we'll see what's discussed at that point.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you.
All right, thank you. So now let's have director's reports. Yes.
I would try sharing my screen again. Maybe not. Good work.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, tonight I have two items on the agenda. Both are requests for permission for the Parks Department to apply for Washington State RCO grants. Two different categories. We have two projects. Artificial turf for the infield of Pioneer Park Field number 3 would be a $500,000 grant request with a 10% match requirement. The other request is for $350,000 to build additional pickleball courts, resurface the existing pickleball court, the existing basketball court, put in new fencing, signage, benches, and new sidewalk access to the courts. That also requires a 10% match of $35,000. We've already secured a private donor to provide the $50,000 match. And we do have a grant opportunity with Grace Harbor Community Foundation to cover the other additional 10% for the $350,000 grant. At this time, I'm just asking for permission to apply for the grant. If we are selected for funding for either of the grants or both, a request would come to you in November that the city would commit to the 10% match requirement. And then once the grants are funded by the state through the state capital budget, another request would come to you in the summer of 2025 to accept the grant funding and sign the contract. So at this time, it's just a request to apply for the grants. And then I want to thank the Aberdeen High School Carpentry Program and Aberdeen High School Girls Fast Pitch. In the photos, you can see the students. It's not going up there again? No.
Or next slide.
Yeah, it's showing that slide on my screen.
You have to share again with that new page.
There, I'll try with that. I want you to see the photos of the students.
Stacy, do you think that you'll be able to share the photos on the city's, the parks web?
Yeah, I could do that. Let's see if it comes up.
There.
There we go.
There.
Okay.
Awesome.
No,
It's okay. It's okay, it's up there.
is it? Well, I will share the photos on the city's Facebook and the city's website. That'll just be easier. The Aberdeen High School carpentry students have been out at the Bishop Athletic Complex building the new score booth for Bishop A. And Aberdeen High School Girls Fast Pitch paid for all the materials. They should complete the project next week. And then the last slide was just a reminder that the 4th of July Splash Festival is next Thursday at Morrison Park, and it starts at noon. And then on Saturday, July 13th at Pioneer Park, we have our outdoor movie night, and the movie is The Sandlot. And the movie starts right before dark, so about 9:30 p.m.
All right, thank you. Good morning.
Quick question for you, Stacy. We just paid quite a bit of money to get rid of AstroTurf that we were storing. Would it have been possible to have used that for a project like we're getting the grant for?
That AstroTurf was used AstroTurf that Montesano Girls Fast Pitch had acquired with grant money they received from the Community Foundation, and probably about 12 or 14 years ago.
Oh,
And it was cut into pieces and rolls. And when Montesano Girls Fast Pitch was not able to complete the project, Grace Harbor Community Foundation, who paid for it, took all of the turf back. And then was looking for somebody to take it for free. And the parks director at that time said, we will take it.
and then we have to pay to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it wouldn't have worked well. No.
Yeah, thanks.
Actually, Staples.
All right, open the floor to the finance committee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are two requests from finance as just outlined by Director Barnum. And unless any council members object, I would like to move that we blend these two requests together instead of voting on them separately, just vote them together as a package. They are for the $500,000 grant and the $350,000 grant. And again, as Director Barnum noted, these are just to apply for the grant. So I so move to accept both reports or both requests.
Good, moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on it?
Councilmember Hodgkins brought up the leftover AstroTurf that we had. Yes, we had to pay the all away. That AstroTurf is made out of plastic and its lifespan is 15 years. We've been hearing about how ubiquitous plastic has become. It's in the air, the water, our fish, mother's milk, the food we eat. I would love to support the people who are using these sports fields. But I can't support investing in plastic that we know is just killing us. And it's a moral decision for me that I'll be voting no.
I have a question. Does it have to be AstroTurf or are there like other alternatives that we could use?
We would use the same type of artificial turf that they used, say, at Stewart's football field, South Bend School District, Montesano High School, the RAC, Stevens Field of Olympia.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Passes. Thank you.
Okay, public safety?
Oh, no.
No?
Hold on there. Finance, so there's one more. Oh, okay. Yep. Okay, so I made a mistake and I didn't finish all the directors. So, Karen, were there any other directors that wanted to comment before I do something? Okay. All right, next would be public safety.
Okay, so, as you all know, 4th of July is coming up. And the fire department is just, encouraging us to be mindful of the city regulations. So you might want to share this with neighbors. Technically, you know, we're only supposed to do fireworks on July 4th from 9 in the morning till 12 a.m. I know they go on way beyond, way beyond that. And we only want to use legal fireworks. That's the fireworks that we can get from the fireworks stand. So, you know, you can't import things from other places. Gotta use, you know, what's local and safe. So only legal fireworks. So we've got 3 stands that are gonna be here. And we want to follow safe practices when lighting fireworks and putting them out. So I'm gonna share a little personal story. Stan called me and he says, "Are you doing fireworks at your house?" We had a big 4th of July celebration at our daughter's house on Seaboat Island. And the next day our grandchildren are from out of state and we had fireworks at home and we set them off. And I was watching from the balcony and we just had a family wedding and we had a lot going on and people staying with us. Anyway, they brought the fireworks that were done and put them in a plastic garbage can without water in it. So a little while later, I'm like, oh my gosh, our house is on fire, you know, and it was just the garbage can. Luckily, it was not in our house. You know, it was not in the garage where it normally was. It was in the driveway or, you know, my husband ran out there and, you know, put water in it. So, you know, put your fireworks in a garbage can, you know, metal better than plastic, make sure it's full of water. Don't try and catch your house on fire because someone did that. Fire chief told me that someone actually did the same thing my grandkids had done and the whole back end of their house, you know, got destroyed. So I'm glad that that didn't happen to us. So just be super careful because it's really easy for something like that to happen, even when they're supervised by mom. We got a summer fireworks program through the Aberdeen School District, and it's in full swing. The great thing is it's not just people from Aberdeen, it's students from Elma, Ocean Shores, and other places. Normally it's 14 students, but they let 16 come this year because last year a couple of kids dropped out. So they thought, well, that happens again. We'll have the correct amount. Well, nobody's dropped out this year. Everyone's hanging tough. So they've got 17 kids that are participating in this, and that's great. And they currently have one vacancy with the fire department. This means that they're going to be fully staffed for the first time in how many years, Chief?
A while.
A while. So years, if I understand it. And this person's just finishing up medic school in Portland and hopefully will accept the position. So that's pretty exciting. And that's it for the fire department. You can go online and you can see all of the information on how to have a safe, 4th of July on the city website. And this is from the police department. Our activity reports are 17,238 total so far this year. Of those calls, 3,300 are traffic stops, and that's up by 107%. From what it was last year. So twice as many, they doubled it. A lot of those traffic stops, we've had 3 this week that were DUIs. Unfortunately, one of them had 2 children in the car. Most of them involved fentanyl and drugs, so be safe when you're out there driving, and the police are trying to keep us safe, and we appreciate that. There's a speed sign on 6th Street. They had over 260,000 cars pass the sign this year. The majority were following the speed limit. Average speed was 24 miles an hour. I think they're gonna move that sign back to 6th, right?
Cherry Street, they're moving it to Cherry Street.
They're moving it to Cherry?
Yeah, they're
Okay.
using it as a racetrack on Cherry Street.
Oh, there's a racetrack on Cherry.
Yep.
And they have stop signs too, and yeah, so anyway, look out for yourself. And then Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs, 2023 crime, Washington report will be presented in July. Probably the second week in July, so we have that to look forward to. And they're still in the testing process for a police officer. And then hopefully they'll be fully staffed. So, that's it for public safety.
Thank you. Public Works, Chair Lawrence.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. We have a few reports to bring forward. First one, request from Public Works.
Lawrence, could you please turn the microphone on? Thank you.
Request from Public Works recommending that the city council authorize the mayor to execute the Aberdeen Holcomb Flood Protection Project interlocal agreement as presented. I move that we adopt this report.
Moved in second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes.
Second one, request from Public Works recommending that the city council authorize the mayor to execute contracts and or agreements with the Public Works Board for emergency program funding up to the maximum award amount of $1 million. I move that we adopt this report.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And request from Public Works recommending that the city council authorize submission of a funding application to the PWB construction program for the Farragut Pump Station project in the amount of $5 million. I move that we adopt this report.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And finally, the request from Public Works recommending that the city council discuss the subject of railroad quiet zones and make a recommendation regarding further investigation by Public Works staff. I move that we adopt this report.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Yeah.
I noted that, this, if we accept this, it has a cost of staff time associated with it. And our staff is, super stretched as it is. I was looking into the city of Vancouver, Washington, and it was a citizens group that launched, a proposal to create a quiet zone down there. And the citizens were able to find the funds to make it happen, to make the improvements necessary to create a quiet zone. So, I would like to have us, look into if there's enough citizens, and maybe Commissioner Lawrence, as Public Works person, who would form a study group to look into this and then present their findings to staff to, make sure it complies with all the engineering requirements, rather than to put another burden on our city staff.
Any more discussion?
I've actually in the last year, had two constituents in my ward reach out to me, in particular, one just recently within the last week, about this issue because apparently the train noise is bothersome to some residents of the city. And they're blowing their horns every time they come to a crossing. So the first inquiry was about a year ago, and I checked with city staff at that time. And basically, the data that I received was that it would be very, very expensive to mitigate to install the necessary equipment at each crossing so that the railroads would not be required to blow their horns. While this is an issue for some residents, including for a couple of residents of my ward, we do have a budget issue of deficit spending right now. We have to overcome at least about a $3 million deficit right now. As was noted, public works staff is extraordinarily stretched thin with multiple other projects right now that are very vital and important to the city. So even if staff time was allocated to research it, I know that they'd come back and they'd say, well, in order to do this, we have to do the following, and it's going to cost this much money, which we don't have. So I'm going to vote against this unless there can be some volunteers who want to research it. But even then, they're going to come back and say it's going to cost X money. So.
Yeah, I'd also like to say that, implementing the quiet zone probably wouldn't be possible, but also, if this committee found, some of those railroad crossings could be, either done away with, their little gravel crossings could be done away with, or, even if one of them has crossings or has some kind of protection, that's one intersection that the train isn't honking its horn to go past. So even finding out how much it costs just to do one might be a viable way to reduce some of the noise.
So we're talking about the need for an arm to come down.
Yeah,
That's it, right?
it has to be.
No buy-in from the railroad.
No.
As far, they don't want to be
The
responsible.
buy-in is their horn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
It's my understanding from the prior research that the city would be totally responsible for any of those.
Yeah. It would be interesting to know how much an arm would cost.
Yeah.
Most of these railroad crossings have gates on them. The possibility is, all you need is a center divider added to keep traffic from bypassing the arms.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, if you need new gates or not, but the mechanics are already in these railroad crossings.
Okay.
You don't have to add the mechanics. That's where the money's gonna be.
And we already have that.
We already have that.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, and it's just like adding those big cement dividers. Yeah.
I'd like to throw out there that this is something that would benefit the citizens. And, if it's waking them up in the middle of the night and they have to go to work the next day, so why not put the energy and effort into doing something that would help them?
Well, we could at least research it.
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of feedback. Well, we all have gotten feedback on it recently. I think enough so that it's worth at least taking a cursory look at whether we commit later or not. So I'll be a yes vote.
Thank you. I know I grew up here and I love that stuff. It's like the popcorns.
No, I live one block from the railroad.
How do you feel about
It
it?
doesn't bother me. It's like music. I'm so used to it. I don't
It's hard.
hear it. You tune it out and
Yeah.
I've lived there for years and it doesn't bother me, so.
Doesn't bother
Director
me.
Sanford.
That's crazy. Yeah.
100%.
A couple points. What David said is correct. There are requirements on certain crossings. We're not confident that they would be acceptable for the crossings that they're asking. That's kind of what we're asking is to go and research that, find out they are. This is not gonna happen down on State Street on that stretch because every one of those crossings would have to be controlled and you have to have a half-mile stretch. So we're basically talking about the west end. That's pretty much the only thing that fits within the quiet zone. David, I think that's what David has come up with as well. We're looking at the west end and there's 3 crossings now. There's a possibility that the one that's already controlled might work, it might not work, it ends up being a center divider. Another option is to eliminate crossings. So, I put in $5,000 as, the budgetary item. I don't know that it'll cost $5,000, but in case we had to do an outreach where we had to do mailings and things, that's what that was. There is absolutely staff time involved. And what Councilman Cedar said is, he's probably correct. We're gonna come back and say there's no funding and it's gonna cost a lot of money, but the initial step is not horrible for us. Because we're gonna rule out the east entrance and we're gonna rule out State Street immediately just based on how many crossings there are.
And, and the 5,000, that's just to do the study, to do the research.
Yeah, that's not staff time. We're not billing staff time against it. That's just for any kind of out-of-pocket expenses.
Council has already asked your staff to create a public process, public information process for, getting feedback on removing fluoride from the water. And we didn't have a budget for that. There's 5,000 there, 5,000 here. I'm just echoing, Finance Chair Cedar that we told our staff to cut back. And we can't at the same time be giving them more work, knowing that they've got some really important projects to finish and deliver on. And as many citizens as I know are concerned about the train sounds, it's a small portion of our entire city. And I would rather they do the legwork and come up with a proposal back to us to see if it's something that's even viable, rather than burden our public works folks who don't have the additional resources to give us the information in a timely way without harming something else.
I'm wondering about, the length of time that they apply the horn, and if there's some change in that, is there, the answer to that?
No, but that's where I was gonna go with my statement with it. I've noticed it's not.
It's not consistent.
They have a minimum, I think it's 20 seconds.
They have specific number of seconds for different reasons. So at one type of crossing, they are required to hang on to it for X number of seconds. And then if there's a person on the track, which there frequently is, especially near the homeless camp, they have to hold on to that for a required amount of time. So that's why it varies. That's why it varies.
I was gonna say that it seems to vary a lot, where sometimes they'll go to, I notice more of a toot, and then it feels like it turns on from Walmart and doesn't stop doing anything.
Yeah, I think that's our campers, probably.
So that could be what the issue is. Maybe we should start as a group documenting those dates and times, specifically when the horn is being held for that long, and see if we can't break it down to whether it is
Someone on the
someone on the track,
Yeah.
versus.
Or just a
Because when they go by normally, you know, the beep beep and they go, it's not even noticeable.
Yeah,
But
that's
they're laying on that horn
Yeah,
to the point where you can count the breaks between each year.
I agree.
I can also, attest that on the east side, for those of us who have seen the train coming and have like stepped on the gas to meet the light and to just like, yeah, I mean, I think, most of us have done it. So, I mean, there's different reasons. So even vehicles could possibly be their reason as well.
The whole video about that at the driving schools. Show everybody. Don't beat the train.
Any more discussion?
So what we're looking for is just some direction from council as to,
And in the last meeting, that was in the impression that we were gonna wait on bringing this forward to council also, so we could take dates and times and get more of an understanding of what was happening and why it was happening before we looked into spending lots of money on crossings.
When I was at the port, I brought this up, because they're looking at bringing a whole bunch more trains through town. And the port said that they would, work with us. And they had contacts with the various train companies and would talk to them about what can they do to minimize the sound level. But even with a quiet zone, the conductors have the authority to toot their horns whenever and however they feel is appropriate. So, if there's people on or near the tracks, that's not going to help give us more quiet. But the port is there as a resource and can maybe help with the conversation with the various train companies.
But I bet the sound level would go down at night in quiet zones. And that's what it's all about. And,
Yeah.
the daytime they can blow it all they want to. It's the nighttime that's the problem.
And is our, I understand our train traffic's gonna double. So is that gonna, triple?
Yeah.
Triple? Is that gonna be nighttime, a lot of nighttime too? 24/7. So it would be nice to look into what we can do to relieve. It doesn't, like I said, it doesn't bother me, it drives my daughter crazy. So yeah, I know that it does wake some people up and then they have a hard time falling asleep. But if we triple, it's gonna be really interesting. Yeah.
Cotton balls are a lot cheaper in real crossing.
Then you can't hear the smoke detector.
There you go.
Another thing to remember is the stretch we're looking at in the West End is not gonna affect, all the train traffic that goes to the biodiesel plant. That's where it's all going, biodiesel or the soybean silos. So those are always gonna be there. Liz did bring up that about the horn, they have a statutory minimum. I don't think they have a maximum. It's all based on the conductor and what he feels is safe. He has a responsibility to be safe and, right, some of those people lay on it the whole time. One thing that Nick just looked up is there is requirements for decibel level of a maximum of 110 to a minimum of 96. And that might be a good, since we're hearing so many more complaints than we've ever heard, that might be a good place to start and find out if they're within the required decibel level to see if maybe that's why there's so much more complaints on the matter. So might be a good first step. And we can probably do that. I can research that and find out. We probably have the ability to have some audiology do that anyway for low cost.
Yeah, that would be great, because, we can hear it all the way up the hill, and I'm sure if they lowered it, they would still be well heard, where they're at, where the road's at.
Yeah, it also gets louder when it's cloudy because that reflects it back down onto the communities.
So some guidance for us, can we take those two suggestions with, public works staff doing this? And then, I want to be able to just check in with the public works team to see if it is feasible to have a community group of volunteers put together that might be interested. Can I take those back to the team and bring something forward to all of you?
Yeah, I think
To
that
see-
the consensus is that we're all interested to hear the data and we're just a little hesitant to spend money.
Okay. Sounds good.
So we still have a motion that was, has to be voted on. So any more discussion? No, all in favor?
I,
Opposed? No. Passes. All right, thank you. We go back to public comments now. I have a little more time, 3 minutes. State your name and your ward or your address and please be kind if you can.
Hello, I'm Chris Hunt. I'm Ward 4. Sorry if I'm a little nervous. I've never spoken at a city council meeting, but I was one of the people who brought up the train noise. So it doesn't bother me much, but I know there are hundreds of children and thousands of people and families in areas that are affected, and I worry about disrupted sleep and, you know, children's ability to concentrate and grow and be healthy. And I think that we all deserve a high standard of living, and we should go for it. You know, the flood wall seemed impossible, but that seems to be moving forward. So I wouldn't count us out too early just because it's going to cost some money or because it's complicated. I don't want to place any undue burden on city staff. I imagine you're all overworked, like most of us, and underfunded, of course. And I think citizen involvement is key. So I think the idea of a panel or a committee or some sort of body that is citizen driven is a good one. If the citizens don't care enough to participate and drive that process, then you got your answer right there. I've done a little bit of research. These projects are 7 to 10 to 20-year projects. Mostly it's study it, make a plan, and come up with the money later, you know. The Biden administration made hundreds of millions or not, if not billions of dollars available for infrastructure several years ago. Maybe if we'd had it in our 5-year plan, that every time we redo an intersection, we consider a train crossing, that we could have applied for some of that money. There are lots of local mitigation options. You can use bells, right? Local bells. Arms obviously are good ones with barriers. You can close crossings. Nighttime is a good consideration. You might just close crossings at night or just mitigate at night. And yeah, during the day, anything goes. And that's fine. And public safety is important. Of course, if an engineer needs to blow the horn that there's a danger, that's totally understandable. I don't think anybody would object to that. So thank you for your consideration and taking time to talk it through. I look forward to seeing what comes of it.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Sandy Miller, Ward 3, and I just want to say thank you to Stacy Barnum's crew, Stewart Park looks awesome. I know from the last meeting, you said you were gonna go out there and work, and it looks really good. I just have one, and I know we don't have a lot of money, but if we could please get some dog poop bags out there. It's one of the only parks in Aberdeen that doesn't have that.
That's a great idea. We can do that.
Awesome. And also, just to plant maybe a seed. I don't know how many of you have been to Stewart Park recently, but the park is divided by a creek. And the bathroom is where the majority of parking is. And to enjoy the park, it's way over here where the covered area is that's rented by the city. I witnessed a grandfather trying to make it across that creek on the, there's some concrete blocks that are in the creek. And he made it across the creek so he could use the sandy can. So just to plant a seed, if there's an Eagle Scout anywhere, that would be a really great project to build a footbridge there. So that you can access the sandy cans from the park. That's it.
Sorry. Thank you. Yeah. Anybody else?
Evening. I'm Bakel Katainen, resident of Aberdeen. We moved into Aberdeen in 1956. And that's the same 68 years ago when the bridge was built. And we only lived about 3 blocks away from when they were constructing the bridge over on East First Street. And I guess I'm kind of old school when I saw the presentation that Evans Engineering presented there at open house. Great presentation, so I want to put my weight on it, whatever it is now, but on a plan, and I'm always looking at why do you replace a bridge? Because it's old, it's gonna fall down. Let's replace it with a good bridge for the public access, use. And everybody will be happy with it. Something that they can use and it'll last for maybe another 68 years. But hard to say when they built those things in those days, but I do remember going down with the neighbor kids there, we walked down First Street, it was only about a couple blocks, and when that bridge was under construction, kind of go in there and whatever, we throw rocks or something, but no, we'd watch a little bit of the building going on. And it was very interesting. Now this has kind of come full circle. It's coming down and going to replace with another one. So I want to make sure I get over there and snap a couple pictures and pass them on down to my son and grandkids. So,
No throwing rocks.
excuse me?
No throwing rocks.
All of the grandkids throw them. I'll bring the rocks, they can throw a few. They play baseball, so. But again, that's, I just look for a plan that would accommodate the needs of the public and the people that are living on both sides. I know it's the main thoroughfare. I go up to Fern Hill a lot. We have a large membership plots there, quite a few, over 100. And so I attend those up there and Monument. So I do travel the bridge and I see some activity on it. Once in a while, you'll see a walker on the sidewalk with a bike. I know there's a kids' play field just down below the bridge there. So I just look for something to go in there, be effective, and get, what we can get for the buck. So I know there's more money needed for the other plans, maybe 2A and 2B. But I'll put all my weight behind 3C. And I know my doc said I'm overweight, so I don't know if that has enough bearing on it, but anyway. I'm in favor of that if whenever it comes to a vote. And again, the presentation at the open house, question and answer was great. I did get kind of confused when I saw the charts and colors and everything, didn't know what I was looking at, but at the end, I made sure I went home and wrote down 3C. So it's on the kitchen counter there, so I'm not gonna go in there and anyway, vote for 3C. So I'm not quite sure when the election is on that, or it's not election, but decisions on design, which one to go for. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Al Smith, Wishkall Valley. I've got a couple of things I'd like to talk on. In my experience with the Bakken crude oil situation here a number of years ago, I can tell you that the engineers are directed by federal mandate to blow the whistles. If you are in question or whoever's complaining about this, get a hold of, I believe it's Puget Sound Pacific or whatever the name is. They're in New Jersey or New York, call them. They will refer you to an individual that handles that complaint. And I'm sure they hear about it all the time. So don't waste a lot of money. Just make a phone call and remember they're 3 hours ahead of us, okay? I want to thank Casey Morrison, Riley Carter, David Yakins, Deb Hodgkin, David Lawrence, and Melvin Taylor for writing this dissertation concerning homeless. What I've seen in the last 3 days is absolutely appalling. I'm born and raised here. I'm kicking 80 years of age, and I see my community going to hell in a handbasket. And People, you gotta get together on all of you, not just half of you, but all of you, and do something about this. I don't know whether it was you that called and asked for 50 more people to join our community. It's a mess down there,
I'm
down on State Street.
no, I
We're
know
talking about the other camp right by Grace Harbor.
that I called homeless people to move here.
Somebody from this council called for 50 people to move in here.
That's not true.
That's not true.
Well, whatever happened, they came. Okay? And that's gotta stop. And police officers showed up Monday morning and asked these people to move. They didn't move. Now, this morning, I went in and I paid a bill. 2 or 3 vehicles will move. The stuff's gotta stop, guys, okay? This is where people do business. People, we want to entertain people to come here and set up shop, not deter. I appreciate your help. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, my name is Ralph Clarkson. I live on Broadway Hill for about the last 13 years or so. I'd like to talk about parking enforcement, and seems like a lot of people are parked all over the place, a lot of cars abandoned. People parked up on stop signs, so you can't see the stops and people are running the stops. So that's kind of a public safety concern for me and my family. Also, in regards to the quiet zones, we live about a little bit more than half a mile away up on Broadway Hill. And we do get woken up at night by the trains. My wife works in medicine and she gets woken up. Before that, 13 years ago, I lived north of Boston in a quiet zone, about 1/10 of a mile from the train. And the trains had the bells going and there were controlled crossings and nobody that I can remember got hurt. People knew to get out of the way. It's just much quieter. So 1/10 of a mile versus over half a mile away, big difference. And I'd like you to at least consider going forward with some sort of investigation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Wow. These stands, they play music. Les Bolton, Ward 4. I heard talk this evening about volunteers and how powerful volunteers are and how they've helped with a lot of things. And I love that. Please make use of volunteers. That's a way to really boost your investment. And part of that, I love your idea about the quiet zones. You know, but let's look at bringing a group of people together. But part of a good volunteer project is making sure that you've got the right volunteers. And I think the company that runs the train is Genovese in Wyoming. And they're looking at increasing, 3 times their volume? And they're going through our community and people are complaining right now. They have a vested interest in reducing the problem. The port wants to expand, and that's a good thing. But the port should also be involved in this little volunteer discussion group. And I think that if we had a group of the people who have contacted each of you council members, the people that are really saying, this is a problem for me, they're gonna identify for you where the problems are. And when you talk to Genovese in Wyoming and the Port of Grays Harbor, you're talking to some people who have access to pots of money that are different than what the city can have. And they may be able to help you connect into some money that maybe you didn't see coming, or maybe they can change their timing or behaviors, or we shut down a couple of streets in order to minimize things, but, you know, bring the players together with the people in the community that are being impacted. You know, we've got a great staff, city staff, and I don't doubt that they would do a great job. But I'm guessing they're gonna call all those people that are contacting you and then they're gonna contact Genovese and Wyoming, and then they're gonna contact the port. And if we had all those people in the same room, we wouldn't necessarily need to pull staff from doing other important things. So anyway, use volunteers, World Music Day, what a great success. And again, that's just this community, the volunteers in this community coming together to do good things. And again, volunteers in the community, the stakeholder group for the bridge. I want to be, that's the answer, I want. But it's not the answer that comes in on budget. I don't know why I don't always get what I want, but, you know, it was a good process, and it was people that were passionate about our community helped us come to the best solution for where we are. And so, thanks, youth volunteers, keep up the good work.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Patty Thomas, Ward 5. I would just like to ask each and every one of you council members to question and ask why, when we did the last cleanup down at River Street, Bill Cedar went in down there and he gave out citations or whatever he posted. The River Street camp and the State Street, they could stay there, but everything else was to be vacated. They were told that they could not put their stuff back there. Okay, now Bill Cedar makes, I think, 6 figures a year, and we're paying him to do this job. And I want to know why, as council members, nobody questions why administration doesn't follow through on the laws that we have on the books, because this goes on all the time. And why are they still there? Why are the business owners down there having to put up with this? And they're taking over the streets. They're camping on the street. They're under the train trestle. They're on the train trestle. As city council members, I would like for you to find out why this isn't being done. You are the one that writes the codes and the laws. You hand it to them and you tell them, this is how I want it administrated and this is how I want it done. Could each of you at least consider doing that and seeing that we get some action in this city that needs to be done to benefit the people of this town? Thank you.
I was down, I'm an Aberdeen resident. 2 things. The homeless, or, okay, maybe not the homeless, but the people with cars going to the parks is an absolutely absurd idea. I don't think that's good at all. I think there's other places they can go other than city parks. That's the start, and I think a lot of people will agree with that. Cause now you got people sleeping in their cars in neighborhoods where kids play, and who knows who those people are. I'm not gonna go into detail on what kind of people they could be or who they are or what they are. I get everybody needs help. The homeless needs help. When you guys do those cleanups, how many of them homeless people jump out of their tents, grab a shovel and help you? That's my question. Why are they standing?
For a second, sorry. I go down there every Tuesday. I've talked to you on Facebook, I think pretty prevalently.
Yeah.
The ones that we've been working with in the sanctioned camps, not sanctioned, whatever you want to call them. I would say on a good day, we get about 70% participation. From the ones that we've been working on.
No, I don't ever hear about it, so.
We have an influx though of people and, you know, and the staff can confirm this now, influx of folks from King County. Less than helpful. So yeah, no, not all of them are jumping out of their tents. And there's people down there that have severe mental illness and drug addiction.
Yeah.
And you're right, they shouldn't be around our parks. I agree with you.
I don't think the parks is a good place for it. I think we can find somewhere else for them. And the problem on Marion Street, I'm gonna tell you right now, I got a camera that points to that stop sign. The 4-way stop as you turn on Marion Street and you're heading down before you, I can't think of the cross street right now, on West Marion. Cars ran that stop sign last month. And I have them on camera, and I counted every one of them. I went through 15 hours of the video. That's got stuff. It's a racetrack. You guys might not think it, but if I had one of those cameras with a speedometer thing where I could just sit in my window, because I'm 2 houses from the stop sign. And I got cameras all around my house, and it gets ran every single day. And then to have some lady just got hit 2 days ago. Gotta do something on that road. I mean, I'll even make my own sign that says slow on it, or put it on the stop sign, because you can't see it. I don't know if it's because when they're coming down, cars are blocking it or something, but I think we need to do something about that too.
Just one question, what block of West Marion?
I'd have to look at it.
On Mills.
It's, I live at 1004.
Thank you.
And are they doing something about when you guys said they're gonna move people that are living in their cars? Is that still a thing where
I just want to, we're really not supposed to interact with people
Oh,
when they're talking, so, so if you could make a statement that we're really not supposed to be.
I'll touch base with you.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Maya, Ward 5, as everybody knows by now. So I just want to put a question in everybody's brain right now. Why are there decisions being made without considering children first? In a lot of situations, I don't think that there should be any sort of compromise when it comes to children on what percentage of them should be allowed to be affected by anything that's happening. I heard a very concerning statement from somebody that said, well, this amount of children is better to, impede in their lifestyle than this amount of children. It has less effect on these ones than it will on these ones. Why does it have to affect people or children at all? Like, there are plenty of other options. Do not put the children into the mix. Next point. Ooh, okay. Next point is, I've been on a health journey, so I've been walking all around my neighborhoods, everywhere. And the sidewalks are absolute rubbish all around the schools. Absolute trash all around the parks, all around the schools. I was pushing my big girls in the wagon, and the amount of times that one of them would smack their face on the side of the wagon because of little bumpies, chunks missing, and it's around the schools. Like, these children are being forced to walk to school if they live within, 2/3 of a mile of the school. They have to walk to the school. And, well, first of all, the amount of pedophiles that live around the schools is absolutely astronomical. Second of all, the sidewalks, like, they either don't exist or they're just in ridiculous condition. And if they don't exist, there's a lot of overgrowth of blackberry bushes. And it's ridiculous. I have to push my children into the road in order to walk to put 2 blocks from my house and then some. And and the funny thing is where the sidewalks actually start being nice is the second I enter Hopium. Like, I'll walk from my house to the YMCA, which is exactly 2 miles. The second I hit that road where Hopium starts, perfect sidewalks. So it's an Aberdeen issue. And this is wild. And I heard that the residents are required to get the materials or something. If that's true, that's outrageous. Because I know all of the sidewalks in front of these new decent businesses, they're perfect, they're pretty, they're taken care of. Why aren't residential areas, especially near schools, taken care of? It's wild to me. Thank you.
Anybody else? Right, yep. Okay.
Hi, Carl Robbins. I'd like to address the issue of the homeless. Nuts. Why don't we have the problem in Oakland, Montesano, Elma, McClary? It's in Aberdeen. Let's think about that. Doesn't have to be going on here. We can't, I've taken my grandchildren down to the skate park and there's needles around the park down there. This doesn't need to be going on, folks, and we can do something about it. I don't know who's sending them down here, but, let's give them a bus ticket out of here. Or get a mental health, which is usually caused by drug use. Let's start incarcerating these people if they don't want to get the help that they need. I mean, I'm all about helping these people. But there's giving them a needle doesn't help them. Giving them a Happy Meal doesn't help them, because then they just throw the trash on the streets and then we pay to pick it up. Ridiculous. But let's start holding them accountable. Please. Thank you. Appreciate the comment.
Anybody else? All right, is there anything for the good of the order?
I have a couple of things for the good of the order. One is, I do hear everyone's frustration with the homeless issues that we're dealing with. I would like an answer as to why King County feels like they can send people here. Because we want to do something about it. We have a plan to do something about it. We've a plan that's been proposed. But if King County is going to send us 30 people, we're never going to get on top of this. We have to be able to ship people back, where they came from, and not allow King County to do that to us. That's one thing for the good of the order. The second thing for the good of the order is when we had a meeting last week, that was a council meeting to talk about rezoning. I was the only council member that was on Zoom, and we had Doug was on Zoom and Ruth was on Zoom, but the rest of us, I felt like it was kind of people just didn't know how important it is. And I want you to know that rezoning is really, really important to discuss and to come to some agreements on, because it could totally change the face of Aberdeen. And, my impression is that, they're moving towards something where we can have, fourplex, triplex, in your neighborhood. If someone decides to sell their house to a flipper, the flipper can turn it into a fourplex. And then you end up with huge traffic issues. So I really, really like to see the city get involved and the public get involved in this, and to have the opportunity to come and not at the last minute to voice their concerns, but from the beginning. Right now, we need to discuss this as a community because it will change the face of Aberdeen. I've lived in the UK. I lived in a 15-minute city. I visited Vancouver, British Columbia when my niece was living there. It's a 15-minute city that she lived in. And this is something we really need to discuss. And so I would like to have a meeting where the public's included and everyone is present. And that's the end of my comment.
It's said by Lane. I totally agree with Councilmember Hodgkin about that. Let's have a meeting where the public's included on zoning. Second, thank you for showing up. Like, I adore this. The last several meetings, we've had a full house. Whether you love what we're doing, you hate what we're doing, or you're indifferent, I'm just glad that you're here and you're participating, and people that are getting up for the first time to speak. And you speak like a complete professional up there, and envious of you. That's amazing. Keep showing up. This is awesome. Third thing, Stacy, bouncing off the comment from Miss Sandy Miller, who wanted doggy bags up at Stewart Park. Is that possible for the Bishop Athletic Complex? Because the trails out there are heavily used and getting pretty icky.
And we do have a dispenser at the beginning of the trail.
Right.
At Bishop Athletic Complex. But if we have more, we could certainly add an additional one.
I think that'd be very helpful. Thank you.
No problem. For Stacy. The bathroom was mentioned, or the restroom, and how you have to, people are crossing the creek. Did we ever get that sign for the west entrance that I didn't even know was there, then you pointed out to me the one?
The sign has not been installed yet, but it has been, excuse me, but it has been ordered. Because as she was talking about people actually crossing the creek to get to the restroom, it is a good idea. I'll probably add a second sign over at the bridge by the picnic shelter so people know that there's a trail from the shelter that gets up to the restroom.
Could we maybe on that sign put like a map, like a red line showing the restroom? And maybe just some names on the back, like the trail that leads to it is kind of an unmarked trail. Maybe put a sign, like a trailhead.
Yep.
The bathrooms this way.
Definitely.
I have a comment.
for the good of the order. I would just like to say that every single council member was invited to the zoning committee. 3 of them showed up. And the public was invited as well. We didn't have a location because of the council chambers. And we couldn't use the building here. So it was changed to online. But everyone was invited. We wanted everyone's input. And 2 members of the zoning committee did not even bother to attend the last 2 committee meetings. So I would just like that made public that we have done everything that we can to involve the public and the council. Thank you.
Thank you. I've been pretty involved with the zoning review process. And my understanding is that there's a number of changes that are going to be made. We'll be getting a new iteration. And I would love to see all of us go through that plan as it is now. It's a draft. Write down what you don't like and why, because it may be that there's a way to achieve common ground, but by getting there a different way. And all of those comments should go to Lisa Scott. She'll compile them. It will give us a common base for having a good conversation. So that we can come up with a revised zoning code that meets the objectives of having livable neighborhoods, having a livable city, encouraging new housing construction where it can be made. And we don't get to a crisis where we throw the baby out with the bathwater because we've not done the work to get us to having a successful plan that works for all of us. So I have a whole bunch of concerns with this plan, and they may be different from yours. Get them down on paper. I started a spreadsheet because that's how I like to do things.
And I don't think there's anybody suggesting that we just throw it out. Deb's got concerns, I've got concerns, and yes, Debbie, I know, I've missed the lion's share of those meetings, I will admit that. I had other obligations. That doesn't mean I'm not keeping up with what's going on. I wrote, what was it, 256 pages, I've gone through all of it and started taking notes, taking a spreadsheet. So, and I was encouraged the entire council to do the same. Let's get it all together and make it into a document that we can live with.
Yeah, and I agree that we need a follow-up workshop. Just to get to some common ground amongst us and maybe there's another opportunity to have public comment on it as well, but I think it would be beneficial for all of us to find common ground and then present it to the public. How does this resonate now? Because it will likely look very different from what we've been looking at now.
Councilmember Ellis, if I'm wrong, correct me, but didn't makers have like a couple of like workshops for the public built into what they were like their schedule anyway?
Yeah.
Okay, so there will be more opportunity for public hearing.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Anyone else? So it's incredible sometimes what you hear as a council member, and just today, 3 people contacted me or said something about, hey, why is the city council allowing the homeless they're going to allow the homeless to camp in our parks. And then I heard from 2 different people just today who wanted to know, why isn't the city council going to be accepting grant money for the museum? And it's like, none of this, these are all rumors. I don't know where this stuff comes from. None of it is true. We haven't taken action on either of these items. And I'll tell you right now, I can guarantee there's no way this council is going to allow camping by the homeless in our city parks. right off the bat, I'll tell you that much. Yeah. And as far as the museum monies, that's coming up for a vote at the next council meeting. So we haven't even had that brought to our attention to vote on yet, so.
We just do our meetings in secret, people that have the running road.
Let's watch these rumors. I don't know where all this stuff's coming from, so.
I think a big issue is the public is terrified, because of the conditions they've been forced to live with for years now. And, hearing the proposals just, they don't have a lot of trust, I think is the right word for that.
I would like. My concerns with, the rezoning proposition, which basically included all residential areas, is we've been told a number of times that no one is gonna come in here and build an apartment complex. They just can't make their money back. They can't get rents high enough to, make the investment worth doing. So the most realistic form of getting more housing would be flipping houses and making them multiple units. And I can tell you, just drive down Fifth Street. If you want to see what it looks like in an area where there's a multiple unit, it's completely packed with parking. You cannot have two cars drive there at the same time for a whole block. And I promise, most of you here, would not, if you live in a home, you don't want to live where the entire street is covered with cars. And so I think we need to just look down the road a little bit at the changes that it could make to Aberdeen and present some other options for additional housing. But to turn the entire city into, a possible multi-unit area, then you just get a parking lot on every street and you get the traffic that goes with it. And it's not good, so I want to consider those things.
What about all the motorhomes up down First Street?
Councilmember Hutchins, as you look through the plan, you'll see that various types of housing comes with its own parking requirement. And there are gaps that haven't been written yet that pertain to other aspects of parking. If you see something in particular you think needs to be changed, make a note of it so that can go into this iteration. I think that's really valuable.
Well, I think that's good. I just could tell you, if you go to areas where there is a house that's been turned into a multi-unit, place to live, that area of that, neighborhood just gets filled with cars. And there just is I don't believe there's any workable way of doing it that's going to make people happy with choices that we've made to do something like that. We do have open plots of land, in certain areas. It would be wonderful if somebody wanted to come in and build multi-units up there, up by the hospital. We've got land up there, but to take the neighborhood and, Patty's neighbor decides to sell their house to a flipper and the flipper turns it into 4 units. Patty's not gonna be happy, and if Patty's not happy, nobody's happy.
Okay. All right, thank you. Anything else? All right, can we get a motion in here?
I move that we adjourn.
All in favor? Very scary.